Oh, lovely. Thank you. So hello, everyone. I'm Anqi Li. I'm the Curator of Education and Public Programs at Parasite. So welcome, everyone. Join our second online program since the pandemic. And tonight, we have the great pleasure of welcoming four powerful women. They're going to share a great night with us, talking about what's going on in Hong Kong, no matter in the arts and also the political scene right now. So tonight, our program is co-presented by Frieze Magazine. In the March issue of Frieze Magazine, Hera as the contributor, collaboratively with our other three speakers, finished article, A Rehearsal for Freedom in Hong Kong. So we're going to provide free copies for people who can be able to pick up the March issue in Hong Kong, and highly recommend. This is a really important reading to share at this point of time. So Parasite is currently closed now, but we're going to reopen from tomorrow to next Wednesday. So people feel free to stop by our Quarry Bay building, and we're going to provide free copies of the March issue of Frieze Magazine. So let me start tonight by introducing our four speakers. We have Hera Chen. Hera is the curator and writer based in Hong Kong. Hi, Hera.
Hello.
Currently, she's the Associate Public Programs Curator at Dai Green Contemporary. Her writing has appeared in magazines including Frieze, Asia Art Pacific, Leap, and Ocula. And next one, I'm going to introduce Susie Lau. Hi, Susie. Please raise your hand. Susie is the District Councilor of Wan Chai, Old Kwan. She's also a curator and the manager of ACO ARCO, Art and Culture Outreach, a nonprofit organization that includes a bookstore, gallery, and studios in Wan Chai. And then we have KY Wong. Hi, KY. Can you turn on your camera? All right. KY is an artist and writer. Hi, KY.
Hi.
Based in Hong Kong. KY critically reflects on the various social, cultural, and gender issues today through a wide range of media. She's also a founding member of the Hong Kong Artists Union. Is Clara here?
Yeah, she's in.
Lovely. Hi, Clara.
Hello. Can you hear me?
Oh, lovely. There you go. So this is Clara. Clara is the District Council of Wan Chai Happy Valley. She's also an artist, lecturer, curator, and also co-founder of nonprofit platform CNG Apartment. So tonight, I think it's very important for us to understand some basic information of last November's district councilors election in Hong Kong. And I think maybe the best way is for me to read the first two paragraphs of the Frieze article the four speakers here co-wrote together. And in the PowerPoint I'm sharing here right now has also some good information. On the night of 24th November 2019, Hong Kong held its breath as votes in the city's district council elections were counted. There are 452 district councillors in Hong Kong, appointed through the only election in the territory in which every citizen and permanent residents have one vote. Since June 2019, the people of Hong Kong have waged a fight for freedom from the Beijing-backed government. Beginning as a protest against a bill proposed by Chief Executive Carrie Lam's administration that would have allowed extradition of people to mainland China, the movement has grown to compass a set of broader democratic demands. The district council elections in November saw record vote turnouts, which is 71.2%, with pro-democracy candidates winning 388 seats and pro-establishment parties retaining only 59, lost around 240 seats. 17 of Hong Kong's 18 districts are now held by Democrats. Among the newly minted district councillors are several artists and artist workers. So before the following chapters are the interview between Hera and also our three speakers today. So I will pass my mic to Hera. And Hera, would you like to be the moderator of today and share more about the article, and also like my overarching question, like why did you find it so important to contribute this article, and what do you think it is important to be bring back to the table as of April right now, because the article is published in March, but I'm sure the interview is much earlier.
So we did this interview. We actually, me, Clara, Susie, and KY sat down together at CNG Art Department in Prince Edward at the end of December. I remember it was after Christmas and before the New Year. At the time that we had done this roundtable, in a way we lived in a feeling like a very different world. So that was a month after the district council elections. It was kind of a time of hope, a time of renewal, which in many ways is still possible in Hong Kong. And my interest in bringing together our panelists who are here with us today was to talk about the role of artists in direct electoral politics.
Yes.
A part of it stemmed from observing the way the artists have engaged in politics historically and also in the world, throughout the rest of the world outside of Hong Kong, which is mostly that the political is articulated through artwork. It can be represented, it can be modeled, but very rarely do artists actually engage in the electoral system itself. Maybe it's seen as too impure, or that the system is actually rigged. And should artists actually end up engaging in the direct electoral system in this way, in which they actually run for office, they often renounce being an artist prior to actually running for office. So that was what I was very interested in discussing with the panelists, as well as the meaning of the election itself. Because seeing as in Hong Kong, there is no one person, one vote outside of the district council, even the day and the morning that the election was happening, I myself had this sense of the unknown or uncertainty, because we knew that over 2 million people had taken to the streets in Hong Kong, and that many more people had been participating in the movement, but there were large swaths of the majority of the population who, in a way, were not spoken for. And then when the votes came in, this so-called silent majority seemed to have spoken, which was that actually it was by a huge landslide, they voted for the pro-Democrats. So in that sense, the election itself felt like more than just an election for district council. It also felt like if Hong Kong were ever to have a referendum, this is how people would vote. So in that sense, that's why the article was called The Rehearsal for Freedom, because the election itself became a rehearsal for a possible referendum in the future of Hong Kong. So since then, obviously, though I think one of the biggest changes that has happened is the outbreak of the coronavirus. Yes. And social isolation measures. So movements that had been spreading around the world, from Beirut to Catalonia, the kind of discourse that had been happening between Hong Kong people and these other social movements abruptly was sort of stopped by social isolation measures. This forward momentum and this energy on the streets and public gathering all of a sudden had nowhere to go. So today, in having this discussion with our panelists, I want to talk a little bit about that, what we can do now, what politics looks like when you cannot physically gather in the same ways, as well as maybe some of the long-term effects of the virus on the economy in the ways that we make things and the ways that we make politics and make art. So first, I want to kind of get a little bit from everybody about what they've been doing for the last few months. On January 1st, Clara and Susie started their term as district councilors in Wan Chai. And also on January 1st was a huge protest, which ended in Chatter Park in Central, in which many people began to build and rebuild and solidify labor unions as a long-term form of counterpower. So first I want to ask Clara, like, what have you been up to since your term has begun?
Thank you, Angie and Kara, for the introduction. Maybe can share my screen to show some photos along the way. Well, but then first of all, I'm sure everyone in Hong Kong would know. I recently or actually all the district councillors have been redistributing or distributing masks, sanitizers, and doing a lot of different things to help the community during this coronavirus outbreak. But before then, I'm now sharing my some photos. Before the virus outbreak got really hit us really hard, and then we need to actually distance ourselves from the community. There was a chance for me to meet informally some officers from the, we call it FEHD, like the hygiene department in Hong Kong. And then I found out that they were actually working on a construction project to repaint the rooftop of this. This is the rooftop of the sports centers, in Happy Valley, which is the area I'm working at. Yeah, so during that informal meeting, I found out that actually this department is working on the waterproof layer, to renew that waterproof layer. And then they decide that this rooftop, surrounded by all the tall buildings with all the neighbors in Happy Valley, should be also painted with some patterns. So I think it is interesting in this case that as an artist, also a curator, I was actually quite sensitive when they actually told me what's going on. So I immediately, of course, asked, is it actually possible to, to have some other redesign concepts developed by the community, basically to engage the community to contribute the ideas about this rooftop ground floors design. And so after several different meetings and some sort of negotiation, then we found out that yeah, maybe it is possible, but the time is very limited. And already, actually, the department has got already some basic design. Oh, I forgot to put that copy of their design previously here. But anyway, so they do have their limitation. For example, this is the palette that we can only use for that rooftop image. Okay, so there were many different constraints, but then I asked if it's okay that if I work within a really short period of time, let's say 1 week or 2 weeks, that is to prolong their construction period of time. And then I kind of steal that 2 weeks to try to consult the residents in the district in order to ask different neighbors to propose and then to respond to different new designs. So one very nice neighbor who is also a designer kind of jammed with me and also my colleague in the district council's office, my office. Yeah, she actually later on proposed maybe it is a good way to use different like geometrical shapes to do diagram, and then we can invite different residents to also use this kind of geometrical shapes to do these different designs. Because another limitation besides the limit amount of colors, it was quite obvious that the department did not, or actually quite afraid that if the design will be too complicated, then they cannot handle it. They were really afraid to see any kind of big masterpiece of Da Vinci or Michelangelo. I don't know. But then it looks like they were having all these question marks in their minds during the meeting. In the end, so this horse rising figure, because by the way, Happy Valley in Hong Kong also has the race course, which is quite famous in our district. So the designer at the beginning proposed this one to try to also at the same time attract other residents to propose other designs. And then in the end, we also got some other designs. And this one, I found it very interesting. This is actually by, because we post online, basically we used social media. And one local resident responded to me, sending this design to me using the limited colors. And if you can see it, my interpretation is sort of like a bar code. But each bar actually represent a road, which are the important roads in the district. Yeah, and so in the end, we basically sent out this option, which got the most vote, and also this one, the second one, which got a lot of votes from the Facebook to the hygiene department, and then. Their feedback in the end was to adopt this design. And yeah, I have not asked why, but I think one of the reasons is that obviously this is a little bit easier. But I think this abstract representation is also quite fun. But yeah, I think in this example, it may be good to illustrate how maybe how artists are engaged in some sort of policy making, then we do see that the art making process, and then even if it's just a design, an image, which is regarded as nothing important at all by the government departments, we do find that to be something significant, and so we would try to ask and negotiate to get more involvement from the community. And of course, another layer definitely is about the social engagement that we promised definitely during the election, that we promised our voters that we will actually put it in the district council. So besides that, and besides, I'm not going to show images about redistributing masks and handing out bleach and sanitizer, but at the same time, my partner and I are developing another very tiny space. Over here, we call it the art triangle because the area is a small shop in a triangular shape. Over here, you can see a bookshelf, which is a corner for book swap, for people to put books here, to take books home for themselves to read. And I think during this period of time when all the public libraries are closed, I can see that this corner is quite useful for a lot of the residents. And I do have some very good books here, both in English, Chinese, and also recently some Japanese books as well. And yeah, and we are using this space to also display artworks. For example, this is a piece by two artists, Gum and Candy Young. Gum is also my partner in CNG apartment. This is actually a map, a community map. When the artist painted it, they actually set it up at the tram station at the public space in the district to ask different passersby in the neighborhood what's your favorite memories in the district, in the area. Some people would talk about the parrots, which has another very long story with our neighborhood, and also different kinds of good food. And recently, we also, because of the social isolation situation here, we planned to do a lot more community works art projects with whole lot of people and a lot of gatherings. But yeah, it didn't work out for the past few months. So we were, my office, my colleagues and I were thinking, what can we do to engage people? What do people feel when they are at home, isolated? Perhaps a small canvas may help. So we basically invite everyone to take a small canvas home, some paint, and so at the over here you can see the new the space now is exhibiting a couple, actually around 20, and currently we have more paintings submitted. Yeah, and the title basically is something very easy to understand, like yeah, face on, off, like what you feel in with yeah, under the mask at this time, and with maybe a hint by Magritte. Yeah, so but I want to highlight a few. Yeah, so this is a very interesting works by by different ages, and I want to highlight some over here. This one involves all the dogs from Happy Valley. They live here in the neighborhood. And also, it was a coincidence where when I found out, when I was distributing masks to security guards in different buildings, I met this guard who showed me his sketchbooks. And he told me, oh, I actually really love painting and sketching, and he showed me his work. So I was like, oh, can I actually invite you to join our exhibition? And this is a piece he submitted to join the show, and I hope to able to engage him with further, like some other, so maybe even solo exhibitions later on. Yeah, and I think one more project I recently launched last week is to put up a blackboard for the community. I don't know if because I think audience from overseas may not know that in Hong Kong, we, even within the district councils, we are facing a lot of constraints. For example, Lennon Wall may have been quite popular among different well, among Hong Kong people in the past in the past year. But we cannot officially, yeah, basically this is censorship, and we cannot officially say that we in the district council to endorse a project to build the Lennon Wall in our district. But I'm sure all the different district councillors are still trying to use different ways to alternative way to solve this problem. So recently I put up the community blackboard to invite people to use chalk to just write, yeah, whatever they would like. And so this has been put up for a week, and I'm looking forward to see how the passers-by, the residents will respond. So yeah, I think I'll sort of stop sharing here. Oh, and by the way, I'm also trying to reuse my banners to paint. It can be my canvas to send out different messages. Yeah, so I stop here for now. Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Thank you. I want to ask, so Susie, what have you been up to these last few months since your term has begun?
Okay, thanks for having me, Angie and Hera. And actually, I just want to tell you a little bit more why I am here today as a Wan Chai district councillor. And indeed, Clara was the one that one of the key person that encouraged me to this spot now, because I remember last year in June, it was a really difficult situation that Hong Kong was facing. I'm wondering how many audience are here now that are local, or maybe most of you are from other places in the world. So I could just briefly recap what was happening in Hong Kong last year. And that makes the situation becoming like most of the Democrats is now in the council, and also it's like a new era that we never have. So I remember in June it was always protest in Wan Chai in Hennessy Road, where I was. It was just my office was located in the central of the Hennessy Road. So from my window, I can always witness people demonstrating and yelling, shouting, police car coming, and even they put like tons of tear gas outside my windows. Even my office was at the 14th floor, but I can still smell the tear gas in my face. So I just cannot do the daily duties, or I cannot focus on curating, or I cannot just do what I was doing at that time. So some friends from the cultural field also think, oh, can we do something more in the district council? So can we expand our territory a little bit to do something new, to try to change the current situation? So that's why we were also, me and Clara was also invited in the meeting and like a discussion evening. So so I had this very initial idea that, okay, maybe I can try to be the district councillor. And before I decided to join the election campaign, I called Clara and asked, okay, Clara, what made you so firm to go for this election? And then her answer was like, I think we have nothing more to lose already. Because it was really tough. We can see that people are suffering, kind of, no matter how hard we try, no matter how loud we shout, the government was not listening. So the soil for the cultural field is not healthy. The whole society is kind of getting darker and darker day by day. So I thought, okay, then I can expand my care, not just in the art space, but maybe to the community, maybe to this area around the building where I work. So that's why now I have like, maybe I take care of 200,000 people instead of just 2,000 cultural workers or artists or curators. Okay, so this was the background. And then now Clara is also my colleague. We just had the cultural committee meeting at the district council this afternoon earlier. So for the last few months, besides of the official meetings with the government and with the colleagues in the district councils, I have done a few things that I would like to share. First, due to the coronavirus, so me and some teammates initiated a sharing station. What could you think about when I say sharing station? Oh, I hope that we can have the people that we can meet and discuss with. But anyway, you can still type in the chat, or we can open up for the other participants to talk later. Sharing station is because that the government is very unsure about the supply of the mask for the public. So we are really worried that we don't have enough mask to use. So even my colleagues, they tried so hard to get masks for the public which is in need. And then I started this sharing stations to let the residents to donate some masks, and then also some say sanitizers, things like that, to store it here, and then to let the neighbors who need this so much, like old people or maybe people in disability, they can come to pick, or I can send it to their door. So it's like 2 months already that we run this sharing station. And then it's not run by my staff, it's run by 2 other neighbors who are volunteers. So it also related to what I have been doing when I was studying art in Norway, or when I was doing my projects in my previous years. It's like gift economy. Can we do it this at this moment, at this very critical moment, I think it's the best time to do gift economy, that people share, and we have much more care to our neighbors than before. So one story that I have to tell you during one afternoon when this sharing station was opened. So a Gai Fong, which is neighbor in Cantonese, a Gai Fong came, and then she heard that an old lady was saying that, oh, I didn't know where I could get the alcohol papers like this one. So, and then a few days later, this young lady came with a few packs of these alcohol papers, napkins, like, yeah, for cleaning the wounds. And then this young lady asked us to pass it to the lady, the old lady who needed it. And after we've done it, and then some days later, the old lady bring this along and said, oh, I have to give this to the lady who bought me this one. So it's like we become the exchanging station for these two strangers. And then, so I guess now we can see that by this kind of regular station, and also some daily caring, and we are making our community having more empathy and the interconnected feeling. Yeah, so this is the first thing we have been doing for the last 2 months. And then the mask that we have been giving out is more than like 3,000–4,000 for now. And then the second thing that I would like to explore further is to think about what is the public space, or where is the public space that is underused, or how can we just make it better, and how can we make people own the space? How can we reclaim the space? So I have been collaborating with some architects, and also urbanists and educators, researchers, to kind of audit our public space in this area. Say which one is more friendly, which one is really useless, which one is really smelly. So whenever I post something on about this on Facebook, there are neighbors giving comments and giving some feedbacks how they use it, or how they like or dislike about it, or their observations. So by this kind of exercise, it's like we are activating their imagination, what kind of space that are more compatible to their daily lives, or what kind of infrastructure they could plan together with us. But of course, it takes a long time to go from the very beginning, where we are so used to the situation, and then maybe some grandmothers, some grannies, they will think, oh, it has been like that for the last decades or for my whole life. But we cannot let them think it's just the way it is, because everyone have the ability to imagine, right? And everyone should have more obligation to make our home better. So I always believe that if you care more about your home, about your building, about your street, about your area, your community, then the city would become better. It's always start from very small things, right? So say is some dirt outside your door, of course you care very much. But what about the next street? So if we can care a bit further, I think is getting closer to our ideal society. And then by doing all this exercise and doing all this activity, sharing station, now we have like a bigger and bigger group of volunteers and active community members. So by this, I am also envisioning new power. This is like a recent book I heard about, which is a leaderless movement. Imagine how we can initiate a project that 500 people would do it together with you without informing you. Or how can you like motivate 2,000 or 2 million people without knowing you were the initiator or you were the leader. So I think during this social movement from last year, plus this coronavirus period, is the best time that we are cultivating this kind of self-initiatives, and also we are looking for different ways to make our home better with like very diverse strategies. So by doing our daily tasks, like rearranging the trash bins on the streets, or say filling the holes on the ground with different government officials, we try to engage people into our daily works. So then they can pay more attention to what's going on and how the system works bit by bit. So it's very complicated, at the same time very daily. Like you can say it's not it doesn't have to be a very big task or like very significant projects, but all these small details in daily life that really matters to how we live and how we imagine what it could be tomorrow. Yeah. And I can share with you the Facebook page, where then you can see some small exercise. Like 2 days ago, I invited 2 artists to walk around the community with me. So we were looking for lonely spaces. Lonely spaces is how you try to hide yourself in. So I was bringing a book and 2 artist friends with me to search for the lonely space in Oi Kwon, Wan Chai. And then we try to observe the qualities and the characters of that space. And then by doing this, we got lots of feedbacks from the neighbors. So you can check at the chat box here. So, and then there are also some interesting discovery, like this photo where a neighbor tried to fix the design problem of the park. Yeah, because this kind of designs is not blocking the sun, is not blocking the rain, but then they try to use their own way to fix it. So it's like, okay, the government is not doing the design that's suitable for them, so they do it by themselves. Yeah, so this kind of interesting discoveries we would keep archiving and sharing to the public. Yeah, maybe my recap would be to here first.
I think that like what Clara and Susie, like what you guys talk about in terms of what the art initiatives and the other initiatives that you have been doing in the different Wan Chai communities really reminds me of the protest ethos of Be Water. Because in the sense that I think that when you guys, along with other Pan Democrats, were first elected into district council, on one hand, it's actually a little bit hard to imagine how to continue the ethos and the methodology of the leaderless protest movement in a more structured form, which would be maybe in a local electoral politics. And I think that this idea of allowing and this logic of inclusion, of trying to bring everybody into the fold, is really reflective as well of the social movement. Because often if you look at the many social movements that happened in '68, it almost feels like a kind of history of exclusion, where the more protest movements progressed, the more groups were alienated, the more radical the core group became, and more unable to actually incorporate new members. And I think that with the Hong Kong protest movement, what's interesting is that as time went on, when it began in June, into December, into January, actually it was able to incorporate more and more groups in Hong Kong. And in speaking about solidifying and building groups in the long term, KY, the Hong Kong Artists Union was not invented last year. It's been around for some time now. And I wanted to ask you how the last few months have been for you, especially now that other labor unions in Hong Kong are starting to solidify as well and to really build up a counterpower to the government, which is the first time that unions have really tried to organize in this way since maybe the 60s. Your microphone is off.
Yeah. So first of all, for those who are the first time hear the name Hong Kong Artists Union, we actually established 3 years before, like in 2016, and at the time, like Clara was one of them also to help us to build that, and now we have grown for over 400 members. Like especially there is a obvious growth after the movement, and there's a trend. I would say it's a trend that we need to observe. It will be still going on for the coming years of people solidarity to form unity of different sectors in the society. And I would like to share a news with you. It's let me share. I think this one. Wait, yeah, maybe I just mentioned it, saying that the labor Department of Hong Kong saying that because until this year, the end of March, that there are 1,607 applications of new union. It's under review, and they only got people to handle 10 to 30 union application per year before, and now it takes them around 50 years to handle all these applications. So technically, I'm not that hopeful about the situation of forming union in Hong Kong right now, especially when there's political issues about maybe there are powers of union forming in Hong Kong. So it's a difficult situation to comment about. Its union is really functional to the movement, and we still need to observe and wait to see the results. But in contrary, I would say what Artists Union do, it's kind of opposite with Clara and Susie, because we take a step back, like instead of doing it in a creative way, because what our artist job, is to create things innovatively and to make works. Union works is actually mostly very practical, that we need to look back into our habit of working and in our field, because we found that we actually skipped a lot of administrative and necessary work. For example, the legal field, or we didn't look into the policy, the cultural policy in Hong Kong, that we only focus on our work. And some may argue that that is not the job of an artist. And I would say if there's a healthy and a fully covered system, full developed system in Hong Kong in the art world, that artists, it's free from all these kind of concerns. But unfortunately, Hong Kong is not the situation, that we have to take care of our welfare and our rights by ourselves. So we actually didn't plan to be that political at the beginning when we formed the union, but until the movement started, that we found that we are kind of one of the good platform to gather all the artists and to do something together. And as we shared before, that for some of the protests, we call for artists to join us, like to make creative play cards and props to show in the protest, and to do sketching, art students to do sketching on site, and escort by established artists and press to keep us all safe. And we also provide legal support before the movement for money disputes or copyright dispute, but after that, we also provide legal support for our member if there's any other troubles. And now we are actually focusing on the Art Development Council and also the functional constituency in the coming legislative council election, because the difficulty we are now overcoming is that the definition of artist as a job in Hong Kong is still in vague, which is a big hiccup for us, because union, it's in general understanding, it's a group of labor. It's a group of people who work and live with certain job. But artists, like in Hong Kong law or in Hong Kong Labor Department for record, they didn't actually recognize as a job, and then we don't come up with a very not academic wise, but practical wise definition for Hong Kong artist, and it stopped us from moving on so many things. For example, yesterday, our functional constituency councillor now, Ma Fengguo, actually made a press con saying that he is impressive that there are actually so many cultural workers in Hong Kong, given that he claimed himself had been cooperated with our sectors for over 40 years, that he, at this moment, realized that there are so many art workers in Hong Kong. And that's why the Hong Kong government policy in substituting the cultural sector, unlike, for example, Germany government, respond that quick, and that's helpful. Like, for example, when the Art Development Council now, they planned to give one-time $7,500 per art workers who are under who can fit in their requirements, and that requirements just not to, because there's so many requirements that there is not few people can meet it. I think you can ask around our members, and the policy didn't just ridiculously not designed for actual art workers. And this is just one example that we are, our artists group together and to try to reach out for these practical duties that other people in the society, other stakeholders, I would say, that didn't finish their job. So we have to do it ourselves. And we're now doing a questionnaire, just like the musician union and also the theater workers union, to do a survey among our members, among artists in Hong Kong, that how difficult they are now when they're losing their job, and what they wish the government can help. But among our internal discussion, we artists also think that our core member in the union also suggested that it's not a good way to completely rely on the government or rely on, you know, patron or tycoon who have sponsored us for years, because of the many we have to deal with a lot of violence money problem, or the moral duty and the liability to public, and it's better to see and think about what can we do for ourselves in a creative way, of course. For example, we now have not the Hong Kong Taiwan adopt a campaign from a UK called Artist Page to Support Page campaign, to using the social media platform to sell their works and then support each other. After one of us sold 5 works, and we will purchase one from the other artist. And our internal discussion was this campaign is really good and it's helping each other, but it's also excluding some other art form that cannot be sold online with 2D images. Or is the selling really help or really sort out the fundamental structural problem of the art market? And how about those conceptual arts? Because when it goes online, we saw a lot of criticism about conceptual art in Taiwan and UK about why this is art, and it is about the gap between the public and the art market and the artist, and we don't have much, and it is just a very simple game. I shouldn't say game. It's a very simple campaign that we think that there should be more layers and more discussion to bring into the public about artists as a job, and how artists deal with the society with their works, and also the pandemic, and also any other unknown crisis coming, for example, global warming and morality issues, aesthetic issues, and a lot of these political issues. And hopefully we can do it after the survey was done, because we want to make something out of factual statistics, and to push the, and hopefully we want to make a forum to discuss, actually invite academic or professionals to give us advice on how to define artists in Hong Kong. Because once we complete the negotiation with the Labor Department of Hong Kong, we actually, for the history, define artists for the Hong Kong law, or the Hong Kong Basic Law, and every other court case following regarding about Hong Kong art and Hong Kong artists would take the definition as the righteous definition to define one as artist. And this is a huge and historical duties, and that's why we hope that people can think more during these isolation period about just take a look of this small group of people. I won't say it's minority, but this group of people actually contributing to society. We make art for people to enjoy, even they're at home. And but when there is a policy or big picture, big blueprint comes out from the government or from any other stakeholders in the society, we are always missed out, and we are not considered as labor, the artist. And you know, for the political, economic issues, we actually have to tackle problems from the bottom of the society, which are people who are actually working and paying their effort to make this world better. So we cannot just make works, continue to make works and survive just according to our own luck, but not looking back into the real issues that we have not been solved for years.
I think that, yeah, like in a way, the kind of lack of definition around what it means to be an artist, in a way, can be seen reflected in all the roles that you are currently playing and enacting. And maybe that's both the beauty, but also the difficulty of, you know, what it means to actually legislate a labor union for artists, because it relies on certain legal definitions that actually artists, it's very difficult to organize, especially in the Hong Kong context. I think that one thing that I want to address is actually about social isolation being together in politics right now. Also, for everyone listening out there, like, we are going to start discussing the questions pretty soon. Please feel free, some of you have done this already, like, to type in the chat your questions, or if you want further definition, if something wasn't clear to you, anything, just put it in the chat and we're reading it as we go along. So in many ways, during the coronavirus and social isolation, the government has actually continued to enact a lot of measures to support the pro-establishment camp, whether that be giving and amping up the police department budget by 25% this year, to expelling American journalists in Hong Kong. Actually, the pro-establishment government is actually very, very active. I think that sometimes it feels very difficult to explain the feeling of what it's been like to be in Hong Kong over the last year, because that feeling has changed so much. I think that last June, there was this sense of, this is really the last time we can really fight for something. And this feeling of the enormity of the collective project was weighed on everybody, I think, quite heavily. We were all addicted to our live streams, really feeling like whatever we can do to build the society and build the world that we want in Hong Kong, we're all willing to do this. And then all of a sudden that feeling and this kind of desire and this forward energy was abruptly cut short by the coronavirus and by self-isolation measures. And it had to transform very rapidly to another way of being together, of mutual care, and also political organizing. So one thing that I want to ask all of you is, you know, what really can we be doing now? Like, how can we politically organize under social isolation? And also, what are going to be the long-term effects of the coronavirus on our society? At least, how do you all see that?
Maybe I can go first. Well, I don't see the social isolation and the current situation during the outbreak as totally negative in terms of, as you said, political organizing or to meet different people in your district. In fact, because of the virus outbreak, I got to meet some different some different neighbors who may not need the other kind of community art activities or the other kind of community projects. But then in this case, currently, they need more information from me, and they need a lot of help during this period of time. So somehow it, at the same time, actually gives us another opportunity to meet different kinds of people. But of course, as Hera has mentioned, it is about a different way to get together. And yeah, but how about Susie? What's the situation with for you at your office?
Actually, for me, I don't think that because of the coronavirus, it stops any kind of movement, because the movement itself is in this period during the time that we are facing these health issues. Because like from last year, we have half year of training that everyone becomes so active. I mean, even proactive to say make publicity for the movement. Last year, almost every weekend, we have different kinds of protests or gatherings or talks or whatever activities to show our to show our view to the government. So, for example, in this coronavirus time, Demosisto, the political party run by mostly pro-90s, like Joshua Wong, so he got the resources, and then he also got the supplier to buy like 100,000 of masks to distribute to different districts. So I mean, based on their experience of organizing events or organizing, mobilizing people, human resources, this kind of experience really pushed them further to help the society with the coronavirus fight. So I guess these two things, they are closely connected and kind of also makes it even stronger, this kind of spirit. Now is the time to utilize it. So since last year, millions of people are using T3, Telegram, and from there you can see many new designs every day. So I can also share with you this website we are now having. Is called Vote for Hong Kong. And then this one is a website made by some local residents that almost better than the official ones. And then from the very bottom part, I just want to share it quickly. from the very bottom part, there, besides of the information of the coronavirus and COVID-19, and you can also see at the bottom is the publicity collections. So you can see people designing, drawing, illustration every single day to tell people wash your hands and stay away from the crowd and things like that. So I think most of us knows that clearly. We cannot rely on the government. We cannot try to wait for the help or the command from the institutions. We have to do self-help. Otherwise, we would be in a even worse situation. So this kind of activism is so vibrant in our community now. This is what I observe. And then even my teammates, even my volunteers group, they initiate so many plans to help with each other. So this is like quite inspiring. Actually, out of our planning, this kind of very organic movement. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think during Susie's earlier sharing, she also mentioned it is important to share, to care. And also, I think that another very important point is about self-initiative. So yeah, definitely, this recent example of this website is one of such. And yeah, I'm sure we still have a lot of different examples about such. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Another example is a restaurant that turned to become a station to like a sharing station. So this restaurant, Long Moon Cafe, they have two like different shops in Hong Kong. One shops, they just make the whole cafe become a sharing station. So people keep bringing masks, and then some people keep coming to buy it in a very low price or get it for free. So you can see that they are breaking the norms. So you think you are just going to have a lunch, but then actually it become a very important social care spot for anyone who need it. And then the way they promote these restaurants or the way they share posts is also become quite political. So now whenever you go to eat out, many people would think, okay, should I support this shop or that shop? So we become more careful when we have to use our money. So actually this is getting like everyone is getting some basic training for how we live our life, how we spend our money, where we shop, how we shop. So I also appreciate very much that although we cannot go out, we cannot gather in a big crowd with a big crowd, but the more time you spend at home or the more time you spend alone, it can encourage people to reflect and think what is going on and how we want to continue our lives. So some people might complain that, oh, having home office is so boring and we don't know what to do. But actually during this quiet time and the whole living rhythm has changed now, people might have a very different way of living and how we see our life. Like a friend was telling me, if this coronavirus is gone, I think I would have a complete new way of living. For example, just every day, I don't need to eat so much different food. I can eat more simple food, things like that. I think this is like changing from the very origin and changing from the root.
I think.
No, you first.
Oh, nothing. I just wanted to say that I think we should start getting to the questions soon, very soon. And maybe one thing that to keep in mind as we continue our conversation is something that we had talked about as well with Andrew last week, which is actually how the long-term effects of the virus will be on the contemporary art production market, and also the ways in which actually living through the coronavirus will affect the very ways in which we in the long term actually organize together and also make art.
Yeah.
But you say what you want to say.
No, I just want to respond to the questions that I have quite a few points to make. And I forgot to address the censorship problem that we are actually, the creative workers are dealing with, fighting against to the ELAP during the movement, that it actually related to the coronavirus situation now. Because we are, during it's inside our discussion and with the core members, we're actually seeing the situation of the artificial intelligence, the AI, and all the technology emerging into the world. For example, all the music and all the live shows, and also exhibitions as well. For example, the art fairs are going online right now. All goes live streaming, and this will actually eventually eliminating the resources and cutting down like real jobs for real people. And it's also, we artists have to face the problem of, you know, our works are being flattened to be displayed online in images or videos, and the aura is gone, and but that's another level of questions that we artists have to face after the pandemic passed, which Hera asked us. But the isolation situation that the government or the power trying to block us down with interacting with others and changing our habit of not going out in the name of protecting ourselves, which is true, that will also constrain our information receiving. That, well, actually, after every social movement in Hong Kong, we elevated our alert of fact-checking and the news that we absorb media, not only mainstream media, but different ways. And that actually affects our thinking and our perspective to deal with the world and to make decisions. But the internet also help us to reach out to people. For example, when Clara mentioned that she reached more Kaifong after being the district councillor, well, after the union is formed, we actually reach out to so many artists that has actually existed in Hong Kong, and that because for the Hong Kong Fine Art Group or the contemporary art world is actually very concealed, that we can never reach out to any other for example, amateur or new artists or art students. But now we have a platform, we have a way that people can actually find their people, that we don't have to be, you know, in the same art medium circle, but we can have a way to reach out to each other and to help. But still, we have to work a long way to tackle the censorship problem that people actually now put aside because of the virus. And there are so many hidden agenda that are now going onto the table, and government are pushing them even fiercely during the time when people does not really pay attention to, you know, political issues.
Yeah, and in terms of what we can do, like in the district council, and also what we can do as artists, I do actually see that it is probably a chance for artists to be involved in the upcoming changes in the production model in the whole world. Like right now, we can definitely feel that in Hong Kong. We now physically realize that we cannot always depend on the global factories, which means nowadays we see that part A from Vietnam is not going to come, which will not be able to be connected with the other parts of mechanism from another region in the world, because everything is separated. But then I think what artists are really good at is to make use of really limited resources creatively, and then how we can actually contribute all sort of these creative ideas for the alternatives for the small scale production model in our own community. I think it will be the big question, a big challenge for us. But I think, yeah, the artists would be able to help with these experiments. And then in terms of district councils, actually, for those who may not be really familiar with this system, this is a district council in Hong Kong is taking care of actually just a small part. Hong Kong is small already, but we have 18 different district councils. So you can sort of imagine the smaller size, smaller than Hong Kong, the small size that we are looking after. So in terms of how to locally facilitate a lot of different individuals to be engaged in these changes in the production mode, I think would be one very good job we should be able to lead, and or our initiative in the next step. And I think this is also quite feasible because in terms of the role of district councils, we may not be able to, we are not able to make the law. We are not able to actually make a lot of political decisions or even executive decisions in the local districts. However, we do have a budget every year to work with, to distribute to different projects. And so what can these projects be? Can these projects help later on in different individuals in our district, in our community, to open, for example, to start a small business in a flea market that we can offer in our district? Can we actually line up different artists together to make some sort of co-production projects? And I think with the budget for district council, all of these are actually feasible. So we just need to basically try and experiment, have more experience with different parties.
Yeah, and the pandemic actually indeed catalyzed the artists to think out of the box. As Clara said, that there is an urge to think about what we should do in the future, because I would say, for my own observation, that artists, it's too, can I say lazy, but it's just too used to and to obey to the old model, which now the pandemic has pushed everyone to walk out to the door and seek for other resolution, and to take a look of the world outside instead of just and we all know that there are many problems in the old art market, and it seems like this is a great chance for us to, reconstructing our mechanical structure of the economy, not only about the art market, but also artists as the workers and also as the social participants, and not to be too distancing from the society. And then we not only voice out after the policy is made, but we can also do the advocator, and also we want to make the policy ourselves.
Yeah, we like following up with what KY and Clara just said, that I think in previous years, we artists or curators think that, okay, these are all system, big institutions, government things. It's not relevant to us. But then now we know that all these policies or all these activities from there is not able to satisfy us. So we need to be in there. We need to step in. We need to change it, make a difference. And we also invite everyone here to submit proposals to us or to try to get connected. Because maybe 2 years before, me and Clara would never think about coming into this system, right? But now it's like there's no other choice. So we have to get into this kind of petty or muddy field. And then secondly, as an artist or someone who is creative, they should do even more. For example, I know that like a documentary film director, they would do documentaries regarding the social movements, regarding this virus time, like how we can get the power to narrate to tell the public or to the world what is actually happening. So we are really welcoming people do more like publications or films or say storytelling, new theater shows that is related to the truth, you know. I mean something that not hidden by the government. Like it was funny that one of my relatives saying that why would the Americans spread the germs to China and Hong Kong? But this was exactly the narrative that the Chinese government is having, is gaining. Like, okay, this is not none of our business. It's from nowhere. It's from nowhere in China. So we have to get a place to say what is really happening by any kind of creative formats. Yeah.
And I think to bridge off of that, I'm reading the chat group right now where people have been posting some questions. And so I just want to make sure that we get to these. Yuan Yuan, hello, are you here somewhere? Okay, I'm gonna read it out loud. A question that Yuan Yuan has posted in the group. Is there a racial racial and other forms of discrimination and hatred directed against particular groups of people in Wan Chai, in the district that you serve? And if so, how do you deal with it?
Actually, I feel that I am quite lucky in my area in Happy Valley. So far, so good. So for example, actually the book swap bookshelf and also the blackboard I showed earlier on definitely is an experimental platform for me to see how neighbors respond. What does it mean? Not just how creatively they can be, but also like how they would express their opinions and if they really hate me or not or something like that. But so far I think everyone is quite respectful. But referring to another earlier on question posed about the upholding the permanent opposition. I see what you mean, Yuan Yuan, and I do also feel that now after a lot of the Democratic candidates enter this district council system, so-called the within the institution, we're within the system now. So how can we learn to negotiate with the different parts of the system, but not always taking the permanent opposition? It definitely is another kind of art. But then, and I think another difficulty is that still, at the moment, our society is still very polarized. So I want to point out that there are still a lot of the public, a lot of people in the public, a lot of the public members and also people who voted for me would like me to keep always this permanent opposition. So yeah, I do feel that this is a sort of like a dilemma. I'm still learning to see how I can, work within smoothly. Yeah. And I don't know if Susie would like to respond as well.
I think so far, thanks to the COVID-19, people have been much more thankful to what we offer, what we are supporting, because it's not really time for fights, I guess. So at least it opens up much more chances for encounters for us to meet on the street when we are giving some materials to them to fight the pandemic. So I guess it's opening up much more nice friendly meetings at the beginning, because everyone just wants to be healthy and stay away from the coronavirus. And I guess the hatred, it was a bit intense before the election, or just right before the election, say in November 2019. I can feel that someone might be doing some, I don't know, not so friendly gestures on the streets to me, but then now it's gone. We cannot see anything like that more. Yeah.
There was a question. Sorry, go on.
Yeah, I just want to respond to Yang Yang about to care for others is to bring the best of oneself out of the others, and we always struggling for like when we artists member talk to each other saying that we are already in the mud water, and how can we actually spend our time to help people, like help other artists. But instead we want to state that by helping oneself, well actually one will help others, you know. By helping oneself we're actually helping others, because if we sort out solve the problems that within our own little world, that actually benefits to everyone including ourselves, so it's still worthy to do so. And for the permanent opposition, it's interesting that I want to share. I think it's a duty for the union. I'm not invested for the union because some of the people, academic, actually say union is a lubricant for the capitalism and for the boss, because they actually solve the problem, and then to let things go smooth and let the workers listen to the boss and compromise to certain conditions after discussion or after negotiation. And but for artists, I think it's our duties to keep ourselves always opposite to established things, even those unnamed. And in our internal core member discussion, there's even few people insist to be the monitor, that they keep judging our members' idea and keep banning each other, and to be a self-monitor to keep the union function in a right way. Yeah, to, you know, it's like a mirror. Before we get going to do something, we monitor ourselves first. And I think at some point, if these monitor group think that the union is time to dismiss, I think we'll be dismantled anyway. And for the last question, has any one of you felt your personal safety challenge? I actually received a warning during the peak of the movement, like last year, during August or September, when political figures, people from the union, got hit on the street by anonymous. That PI, because we have some sister unions, and then we all got warnings about we shall looking after ourselves, and then take a walk before we going home, and then to take a look if there's someone follow me after after leaving gatherings or assembly, and then to keep yourself safe, and then don't walk alone on street at night. So that's actually we actually got some warnings, because we are union people, but fortunately I'm still good. And then there are some harassment emails or pictures, but I'm kind of used to it, because for my personal works I usually doing some sexual related things. I kind of used to this response. Yeah, it's a long-term problem that we need to sort out, but so far so good.
So we have some other questions in the chat. I might read a few of them at once. It's Human still here? I think Human Wu had sent this accidentally privately just to me, which is a question for the panelists saying, do you see differences between different district councilors who have an art background and those who don't? And what are the advantages and disadvantages? So I'm guessing that one is aimed more at Susie and Clara. I'm just gonna say a few of them. Anindem says, how do you think the movement will evolve post-COVID-19? Sam says, how do you all think having the perspective of an artist or approaching things in this perspective can help the community navigate the current troubling political situation and pandemic right now? So I'm going to stop right there. And if there's one that jumps out at you.
Well, then for the first question about the difference, of the artist with the artist background, are we a bit different? I don't. I think it's not probably not only because we have the arts background, but also about the values we uphold in the art community, in which we grew up with, and which is about for example, I think was mentioning like all of us seems upholding some sort of permanent opposition, and she also explained later on about this opposition is to oppose to things that's not good, right? We all have all these really clear values, but then as I mentioned in my first example, I think then in the process of different policy making, I think with my arts background, I'm more probably more sensitive about okay, maybe you can say the visual, but then also about the making of. And then on the other hand, I think that the small details, the fine detail, would be very important for most artists actually. And so what does it mean by these small details? Because sometimes we can see doing a lot of works in the districts for district councilors seems to be, oh, it's too tedious. But then on the other hand, what does it mean by this kind of tediousness? It means if you really care, you care about the really fine detail of each element in this community. And at this moment, we know that the governments on this like level up there is working, you know, a lot to suppress us, to do a lot of things that we may think is not good. But I sometimes we try to see, is it possible for us to work on the small detail at the ground level, which may sometimes, hopefully, be unseen or some sort of hidden in a hidden level from the big brother, let's say. If it's possible, can we build things from the bottom up? You know, and I think this is possible. And with artist sensitivity about the small detail, the fine detail, I think this is probably the advantage, yeah, of us.
Okay, maybe I can also say about what I have been observing, how Clara has done her works in the district. Like this background of her is a space that is like maybe just the only one in Hong Kong that a district councillor would set up a space like this, a bit like A3, that the art project in the small back lane between that organized by Yang. So I guess we are maybe giving people surprise that they don't expect for. Say they would never think about, okay, why would these people paint these small paintings on the corners? And then for me, I think I care about the aesthetics in not only the physical space, but also the aesthetics on reaching out to people, like how we meet and greet and how we form our society, how we let people meet and experience. So this kind of rationales is similar to how I planned my art projects, like what kind of experience I want to show them and how possibly would they react to it and how I would feel when I enter this space. Like, can I use this abandoned space? So all these are quite similar to how I work as an artist or a curator to kind of link up the resources and the space and the people at the right moment. But then as a district councillor, we just have a bigger amount of money or like more different kind of space that we can use or we can arrange. But how we different from other councillors, I think we have to ask the neighbors. Yeah.
So, well, for the works of Artists Union, we are still very limited to serve our artist member, but by saying artist member, there's still a lot of space to explore because we see cities, for example, in New York, when artists call out for protest, there are thousands of people, and we actually want to get more tight linkage with art administration in Hong Kong as well, because it's a closed ecosystem that we need to work together. It will be more influential if we bring them together, while in Hong Kong, very unique economic art ecosystem that many artists are also the administrative. And we are working on the little point that little dots that can link together and to form a big picture. So our Hong Kong artists we wish that no longer issues that amount a very small group of people, but because now the art education in Hong Kong is so hit, and then there are so many big international art events happening here, and it is there we see the necessity to get to do something bigger and to voice out and to get people's and the society attention of these creative content builder, because at the same time many artists are also art educators in Hong Kong as well, but like policy in Hong Kong for the education for now the substitute policy, they didn't even notice the existence of these art educators. So we are tackling very specific problems for our field, but eventually I think it will benefit to the society. And when people go to museum on their weekends, we hope artists can do more than just providing entertainment and ornament for them to enjoy during holiday, but can actually change their mind of thinking or to see the world.
So I wanted to also, by the way, if you have a question, you feel free to turn on your video and your microphone and ask it directly. If not, I'm also happy to read out the questions that have been coming up in the chat. Martin, are you there? Would you like to say your question yourself, or if I don't hear from you in the next 10 seconds, I will read it. Okay. Okay. I guess the question that Martin Fritz, as denoted in the group chat, the Zoom chat, has asked, does it make sense to extend the creativity paradigm into politics? Shouldn't we rather become more political, i.e. legally and economically, with others on an equal footing, but not necessarily on a creative one? So, Martin, if you're there, please feel free to come on board to maybe explain a little bit about where you're coming from. My understanding of the question has to do with positing the creativity as the kind of primary form of political engagement rather than the economic or the legal. So, well, I guess, yes. Yeah. Hello.
Hello. Well, yeah, if you hear me, it was
yes.
It was under not comparable circumstances. I was once a district councillor in Vienna, Austria, and I remember that to be effective in politics was less about creativity than more about getting the hardcore business elements of politics, legal information, financial information, economic, structural information, to really dig deep into it. And that this is the bigger obstacle to be politically effective than what we easily call creativity. So that's why I wanted to ask the colleagues how this relationship between the political in the narrower sense and the creative plays out in their experience.
Well, First of all, I think although a lot of the examples Susie and I talked about may be quite related to the arts and creativity and socially engaged sort of programs, but definitely, yeah, we are dealing. We still need to deal with a lot of the hardcore issues. For example, in today's meeting, in the Cultural and Sports Committee, we were trying to ask the government departments to pay our professional coaches in Hong Kong who have been laid off because of the shutdown of the government sports centers in the past few months. And a lot of them, they're like, mostly freelancers. They don't really have a lot of the necessary documents for them to apply for some sort of government assistance at the moment. So yeah, I mean, yes, we still need to deal with a lot of these issues. But then on the other hand, yeah, there is a lot of limitation for district councils in Hong Kong, because ultimately at this moment, within the whole infrastructure, district councils in Hong Kong are still just the consultancy agents. Yeah, so we have a lot of limitations, but we would not give up to make use of the platform in the council to, like, for example, to make the people's voices, like, visible, and try to also challenge the different government departments, yeah, all the time, to help, yeah, for what we think is good for the community and good for the society.
Yeah, and also adding on to that, I don't think these two things are contradicting. At the same time, we do things with creativity on a daily basis to engage with the neighborhood. But on the other hand, whenever we have to deal with the documents and at the councils, we have to find what actually the problem is and how could we possibly change the situation that we think is problematic. So I don't think it's just to make choice whether to do this or that. It's just interviewing with each other. So of course, with the creative background, is might be seen as the artistic group or something, but at the same time, we try to think in a more how to say, like in a more diverse levels, where we care about the people who might be suffering that the government is neglecting. And then, but at the same time, we have to find ways to fight with the institutions and to push them. Can you do something, or can you try something? So this is what we have been doing in the last meetings in the councils.
And to respond with shall we go more political or legally or economically? Well, that's indeed what union is now doing. And this, I will see this is theoretically the same questions about Yang mentioned before, that there are criticism or discussion about if artists, it's also workers in Hong Kong, because I myself as an artist, I would say it's an ideal status that artists can only focusing on artwork making, and then don't need to pay attention to all the agreements and the contracts, or to pay attention to policy making or any other thing. But just because it's a unique cultural background in Hong Kong, and also our cultural policy establishing, it's not that healthy and it's not that accomplished. And so we Hong Kong artists have to take care of a lot of things which we don't pay attention to before, and many accumulated problems that we see the consequences is now floating up, and then we have to deal with that. So the problem is for us, for the union, it's not if we should become more political. I think it's more like we need to work harder to solve the existing problems so that we can be more artistic and more purely, and being an artist in Hong Kong, maybe there will be a better system to protect us, better policy. And so going back to the arts, if artists, arts workers things, because if we don't have to think about if we don't have to think about how we make a living, then artists can simply be a very noble status, like and is not can see as not a job, but a very unique merit, or it's a honor to be an artist. But now what we actually facing in Hong Kong is that being an artist may not even secure our own living. So when people seeing artists are not workers, and so that they don't need to think about the politics, or need to being involved in social issues or something like that, it is a very ideal stage that I think maybe many artists want to achieve. But for the current situation in Hong Kong, I don't think it's practical to, to reject of or to admit that, well, artists is human, that we need to eat and then we need to get paid after laboring. Yeah.
And thanks for sharing by Yang Yang. She says to share seeking logic from governments is like pressing stones for blood. Oh, it's so sad. But no, I want to also emphasize, I don't think Susie and I are naive enough to believe that if we raise the issues in the councils and discuss, then we will immediately get the responses. No, but then still we need the to make the statement and gestures from time to time for try to press the stones. And then at the same time, Alex, you also asked, is the government now very antagonistic? Well, I think in a lot of aspects, yes. But as I mentioned a while ago, I think there is still this gray area, some sort of the very, like hidden levels within the local community where we still have room to work with. The first actually example I mentioned at the beginning of this talk was about how to negotiate with the hygiene department to try to convince them to use a design by the public member in the community, but not the original design they have already approved, after I'm sure like several different meetings and a long time of the bureaucratic in the bureaucratic system. Well, in this kind of level, in the middle or lower level of the governance, we still see different government officers in different departments. They are still willing to change. Yeah, and I think these changes are important. Yeah, because we want to make the change and start to make changes from every small level within the whole governing system. And ultimately, hopefully, from bottom up, we can redevelop our own Hong Kong. Yeah, and then within this kind of rooms, gray area, within these gray areas, I think this is also important to provide the space for self-initiatives, where Susie earlier on also mentioned. And if you really have absolutely no freedom, no room to do anything, how can you have the self-initiatives? Yeah.
Yeah, and then, sorry, just to add a little bit. Actually, this year, the district councils, we have like $30 million to Hong Kong dollars to do community projects, say infrastructures or just cultural activities, or say hygiene activities or education, publications, these kind of things. So we have to, it's not just we, the councillor, telling the government, you have to change this and that, but we are representing our neighbors. So what we need is to gather them and to encourage them to participate. That's why we are also going to open up the district council. It's not just the councillors to sit there and talk. It's like every week we try to open up and have the live streaming of the whole meeting. So everyone can give comments, even give comments before the meeting. So by opening it up, we strengthen the bargaining power. We have more bargaining power. Yeah, I think so.
I think that we should wrap it up. So I want to thank Anchi, Parasite, Freeze, and Susie, Clara, and KY for our talk today. I know that there were more questions and that this conversation doesn't end here, nor did it even begin here. And these are getting conversations we're going to be having for a long time. I would invite you who are listening to maybe visit Clara's Art Triangle space in Wan Chai to help out, to be a part of the neighborhood initiative, see what it's really like, and to be a part of that. There are more interesting questions that keep popping up on the chat, but I'm afraid that we're going to have to leave it off here. I do want to read Winnie's out loud though, because I think we can maybe think about this in the long term, which is, how can you all win this game and institution without losing your own soul's intention, especially among the artists with an artist background, which is one with an idealistic scenario. I think that this idea of playing the kind of infiltrator perhaps is interesting for us all to think about in terms of how we engage in Hong Kong politics in the future. And I'm glad that that sense of fear of losing one's soul did not stop Susie and Clara from entering into the district council, and also from KY from, you know, organizing with the labor union. Anchi, did you want to wrap up for us?
Yeah, thank you so much, Kara. Thank you, Susie. Thank you, Clara. Thank you. Bye.
Thanks.
So yeah, I think like for tonight's discussion, it's really important to, well, like personally, it's very important to me because I think at this time, like we're all locking ourselves at home, it's important to remind of ourselves what we wanted to do, what we need to keep doing, and also think about how we can protect ourselves once we have the freedom to keep proceeding with our original goals. So it's very important to standing this virtual solidarity with each other at this time. I'm going to wrap up tonight's program and want to share some information with you guys about Parasite's upcoming programs. And certainly to remind everybody, you can now go to Parasite from tomorrow to next Wednesday to pick up a copy of Freeze magazine. And thank you so much, Freeze, for offering us the copies. They will be available both inside Parasite and also outside Parasite. So please stop by. And at the same time, we're closing our current exhibition, Koloa Women Art and Technology, and to create a very safe environment for everybody, please email info@parasite.art to make an appointment, and we will make sure the space is clean and safe for you to visit. At the same time, I want to share with everybody our next upcoming exhibition, A Garden of Six Seasons, will be up in May. So please stay tuned about this exhibition, and we're already announcing some of the participating artists on our social media. And for our next online program will be next Thursday, same time, 8 p.m. And next Thursday, we'll be revisiting an 2014 exhibition by Parasite, which is 10 million rooms of yearning sex in Hong Kong, with the curators Cosmin and Chantal. So I think I'll see everybody there next Thursday. And for tonight, thank you so much for joining us, and thank you so much our speakers. The program is already recorded and will be available to review on our YouTube channel, hopefully by tomorrow. So yeah, I think, and also the speakers have offered a lot of great opinions and a lot of ways to get involved more currently, also in the near future. So everybody, I would suggest you to follow the works of our speakers and also follow the work of Parasite. We want to try to make sure we have the right topics to cover and the right conversations to talk about. All right, thank you everybody. Let's call it a night.
Good night.
Thank you
Bye.
very much. Good night.
Bye-bye.
Bye.